Well, thanks everyone for joining JASCI's webinar series today. I'm James Gibson, one of the solutions account managers, and we're luckily enough to be joined by our CEO Craig Walensky today, who's going to be going over the top 10 WMS software requirements every 3PL needs to grow. So Craig, perhaps you'd like to do an introduction and we can start things from there.
Great. Yeah. I'm the CEO and co-founder of JASCI Software. Have a lot of years experience in the field, owned prior software companies doing WMS, WES type platforms to run Fortune 1000 and mid-tier companies. I wanted to do this session because there's a growing need in the market. I see it. I'm passionate about it. So I wanted to talk about what I'm seeing across 3PLs we're working with, and even end brands that use 3PLs as well. So I came up with a top 10 software requirements that really I think every 3PL needs to grow. I think when we go through it, everyone's going to agree. So let's get to it. Let's go through it, and ultimately, I'm passionate about every one of our customers and 3PLs we work with grow. So let's get into it here. I've got to find my navigation. Okay, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of reasons why 3PLs need to do a modern stack and how it needs to work together. One of them is ROI, right? How do I make more money? Everyone always thinks about that. How do I scale revenue? And how do I make more profits? That's one part of it, which we are showing here. As we go through this, you'll get it. It'll make sense. How do you get revenue recovery? Everything from billing to shipping, efficiencies, labor efficiencies. How do I onboard clients quicker? How do I get ROIs faster? And another one is keeping your customers. How do you give your clients and your customers a better experience? Because if you don't, they leave, right? We all know that. So how do we hit their requirements? And also, when you're going to expand your revenue and you want to bring on more clients, you try and be as picky as you can in terms of the types of customers you want, but sometimes new opportunities come your way, right? And then how do you fit the needs of those new customers? Do you have the arsenal to be able to take them on? And that's a challenge for a lot of 3PLs because as they take on these customers, if they don't really have the technology or the software to handle it, they're trying to do everything manual. And, that turns into a mess ultimately and can cause your customers to leave you. So we don't want that. So let's get to it. Let's go into the pieces here. So the growth opportunity that we're going to present is, how do you get away from siloed operations, manual operations, offline operations? How do we do it together, like for B2C and B2B? Because most companies that do B2C also do B2B and vice versa. How do we handle, easier onboarding integrations? How do we bring on new clients? How do we get their inventory in? How do we optimize it? Those are all important things. The revenue leakage thing, we see it across the board, and everyone's challenged with it, with 3PL billing. How do I really account for all my revenue that I'm supposed to get? And am I truly billing for everything? Is my staff forgetting things? Things falling through the cracks? And then you have your revenue leakage. Poor visibility is another one. Offline tools, performance, all those different things affect, companies. So one of the things I'm going to start off with is really a unified omni-channel fulfillment system. That's what's really needed to handle what I'm seeing the 3PL base. So 3PLs, they do business to consumer and they do business to business. That's basically what 3PLs are designed for, to offset that from those customers. Now, you may be in flux with more B2C or more B2B, or there could be an even mixture. It doesn't really matter. Do I have the tools at my disposal to handle that? So can I have, like, for example, can I have one platform to handle it all? Can I have one inventory pool? We see lots of customers that actually segregate their inventory for B2C and B2B. And maybe in some cases that's the right thing to do. But in a lot of cases it's not. How do I not have a separate inventory pool? How do I share it? How do I have one model? And how do I perform all these things and do them well? It's not only perform, but we see 3PLs that could have 100, 200 people, maybe more, hundreds in their operation, and because of all these manual things that they're doing, checking, there's just so many different reasons why, because they didn't really automate it together. Okay. So these are just a few things I put up here: receiving and put away, because I need to do PO receiving, ASN validation, line receipts. I need to notify the customer. I need to integrate with them so they know that things are put away and they can start selling them to their channels that they sell on. You need inventory management because you're accountable for all their inventory. You may have replenishment. How do I slot things better? And this is a big one, because if I don't slot things well, you're going to do a lot of traveling in your site. You're going to touch things more, and it's going to be more costly and more people to run. And you're going to make mistakes. And the more mistakes you make, the less confidence your customers have. And same thing with order management. How do I handle e-com orders, B2B orders? They have separate flows or workflows that you have to follow. One may be picking cases to a pallet. The other one may be picking each is to a pick cart. Maybe batch picking. It could be all different. How do I handle those workflows? Picking and packing for e-com. How do I do that the best? How do I do shipping, load management? There's just a ton. Kitting and VAS, labor management, and B2B compliance labels. How do I stay compliant when there's so many things that your customers may be shipping to? So that's really one of the most important things, is having a platform that has it together rather than kind of piecing it out manually or different systems and trying to make that work. And it's really hard from an IT perspective, because now you have your IT staff, if you have any, kind of jumping in one direction. Next minute, they're jumping in another direction. Then they have to do integrations. They're stressed out. And we see that a lot too. Okay. So one of the big pieces also is implementation of a platform. And also, can we leverage AI to do it better? Can we have client onboarding easier? Can we make that simpler? Can we do all different things a lot easier, right? Why does it have to be so hard? Can we do integrations easier? And that's the key now. You've got to be confident, or the 3PLs really have to be confident that they can do this well to take on that business. And that takes training of staff. Staff has to take to it easily. How do we make their jobs easier? So one of the ways we've been looking at it is leveraging AI for onboarding assistance. So onboarding new clients, onboarding users, changing configurations, doing your billing setup, and more of an AI type of setup that makes it easier for people, rather than going through complex software and complex screens trying to figure it out, and make it work. Right? So how do I work through this, kind of like from an AI perspective? And we've been investing heavily in the AI side to make this all easier, not only for you, honestly, for us too. Because when you have questions, who are you contacting? Contacting the software provider, right? How do I do this? How do I make it better? So the easier we serve it up and the easier we make it for you, the more successful you can be, along with your staff, right? So those are important things. Whether you want to do a cart configuration, how do I configure carts easier? Can I configure a put-away cart, a cluster pick cart, a discrete cart, singles pick, batch picking? How do you want to do it without having to go to university for years and being a software expert? Okay. And that's really how the AI is going to assist people. That's how we see it. moving forward? How do we just make it simpler and easier? Okay. Automated 3PL billing tied to execution. This is critical, and everyone's challenged with it. They try to export data, put it to another system, try and do the billing in something else. But you got to capture all of your execution, all the work, all the workflow work you did, all the labor, maybe all the VAS, maybe all the kitting work, the shipping, maybe there's repalletization. There could be a ton of things you're doing. And then you're relying on someone writing it down and handing it to accounting to figure it out. You're trying to do it offline. Maybe you work on weekends to figure out your billing. Pain in the neck. And your customers want to know what their billing is, what it's going to be. They just don't want to be surprised at the end of the month. They want to see it as they go along. So how do you really pull that together? That's a key one. And having it in the core transaction engine is really important. And having AI be able to help assist you with how you should bill, how to bill, what are your billing rules. Maybe you bill every customer differently. Maybe you have a different query of how you bill everyone and a price to that differently. That's why it's best to have it that's why there's an advantage having it in the core system and capturing all the transactions. This is a big one. This could be the difference of you making a profit or not. I mean, I know a lot of 3PLs, rely on shipping to make a profit. They rely on, containing labor, right, and their rate cards. But this is a big area. And this is fair. I mean, you're billing for the work that you're doing. So, this is an important piece. And I get this question a lot about robotics, conveyors, automation. And I've been involved with many, many robotic projects, many material handling, conveyor systems. And one thing I've learned is, we want to stay within the boundaries of what the industry is offering. That's one big thing. If you think you're so unique and you want to devise a whole new concept of doing it, I'd say rethink that a little bit, because the simpler you can make it, even though you might be able to get that extra benefit that you're looking for, maybe instead of getting 100% benefit, you get 70% of it, which is plenty. Keep it within what the industry does, because that's what they're developing for. Another big piece, another big problem is having separate systems and having those separate systems communicate and integrate with each other. If you've ever been involved with these projects, the integration always seems like it's going to be easy. You're always told it's going to be easy, and then it's more work than you signed up for. And did you ever get the real benefit? So we go into a lot of projects, even with conveyor systems and sortation systems. And yeah, the conveyor is capable of moving 300 boxes a minute, but it's not, because it's not tied to your core transactions, and it's a separate system, and it never really gets its potential. And we're seeing that with robotic projects too, that if the integration isn't very tight with the AMR, the AGV, pallet to person, if it's not like core done, it's very, very difficult to get the benefit you were looking for. And you'll have a lot of edge cases, and everyone works on these projects for James, help me out. They go for Happy Path. Everyone looks for Happy Path. So you go to the whole project through Happy Path, only to find out there's exception management that has to be done. Oh, I went to go pick, the box wasn't there. Oh, the item wasn't there. How do you then communicate that from the other system that you're doing it with to your main system? How do you communicate the exceptions when there were never APIs that you created to do that? So now you're in the whole API project trying to communicate the edge cases to streamline it, because right now what you're doing is you're running around manually trying to handle the exceptions. So most everyone I talk to has what I call automation ambition. They want to do these projects. They want to get involved. But there's two things I'm working on. Is one is how do we make the integrations as seamless as possible to these solutions, and how do we make them really cost effective? Is it worth it? Is the ROI there? And I think the ROI is. I'm seeing it on several projects right now. The cost has come down a lot, and these projects are realistic. Before there was like, okay, 5, 6, 7 year payback, is it worth it? And now we're seeing a lot less. So yes, it is worth it, but it also looks at your use case. Labor management and workforce optimization. I go two ways on this. One is, yes, you need to know what your labor is working on. You need to manage your labor. You need to make it more fun for them, give them goals, give them, rewards. However, if you have kind of like bad software and the software has inefficient process, hitting the labor over the head to do it faster, I've never seen that really work. If it's bad process, you're just not going to get the benefit no matter how much you put towards it. So if you have better process, and that is software, right? Now it's how do I manage an operation? And I've been looking at various ways of how to do labor forecasting, how to know where my labor is working. I mean, some facilities we work with range from anywhere from 200,000 to 2 million square feet. And some are smaller, some are larger. However, labor could be dispersed over various processes. They could be like you're seeing the graphic here. You could have labor working in receiving, picking, put away, replenishment, all different areas of the warehouse. And how do I manage that better? How do I get visibility? That's a big one. How do I, as a supervisor manager, how do I get better visibility as to where my labor is, where it's needed, right? Where the work is and where it's needed. And if it's not needed, how do I send them to another area without running all over the place? So that's where I see it moving. I see it moving towards clear and measurable real-time what's happening in my operations. And then you have the historical reporting, which is after the fact. But most importantly, how do I get my work done? Where's my labor? How do I balance it right? That's the big thing I'm seeing is balancing. And the better we do this and the better process, the better, more labor efficiency you're going to get. Okay, next one here. Seamless integration framework. This is a big one. A lot of platforms integrate, people are getting better at integrations. There's more integrations available. We have a ton of integrations. But then what constitutes an integration? What is the definition of the integration? What does it really perform? You have to do a little bit of a deep dive there because, okay, I got a Shopify integration. All right, what does that mean? Can I integrate Shopify products? Orders, how is that all work together? How deep does the integration go? And that's across, ERP systems, carriers, e-commerce, and that's a big area to look in. We tend to get involved with full-blown integrations because customers, need deep integrations. Even with Shopify, they need their deep integrations with Shopify, which we supply, and then you got to make them configurable, all self-service. So like I said, many people are offering lots of integrations today, but we also have to look at what are the capabilities of those as well. But in a lot of 3PLs, you may have a lot of, typically I see that there's an integration specialist on the team, and they're always working on something. Real-time analytics and client portals. This is extremely important. A lot of people develop separate systems and they try to send the data over for the customer to log into. Is it updating in time? Am I giving my customer the true visibility that they need? There's internal, even better, there's internal and external. So am I giving my internal operations what they need, management what they need, and am I giving my clients what they need to be successful? And if we don't, all we get is a runaround. And I've seen it. We've all seen it. Trying to get this data, trying to figure out what's going on, and answering customer questions constantly. So you may have your clients contacting you all the time, through email, calls, however they're contacting you, because they may not have the right visibility or capability through their access to the system. Now, we called it client portals, but really it's a login to the main system. They have to work off the same database. They don't have to, but it makes it so much easier because then you have real-time data, you have what they're looking for, and you're making it truly transparent. One thing I want to mention on this is important, where this is a big area. So, and we're working on it too. What you're going to see is a lot of AI here. So you're going to be able to, and we're working on this right now, where you can create your own tables, reports, everything dynamically with AI and share them as well with make them private, make them shareable, and making them extensible to both the client portal and the internal. Now, there's different reports you have to enable for that, but we're going to see a lot of AI here as well, and rightly so. It'll really help you create your own reports. Intelligent shipping and packing. This is another area of how 3PLs profit, right? And there's multiple things. One is in a 3PL, you may have 4 clients, 2 clients, 100. You may have a number of different kinds. Some of them may be using your shipping number. Some of them may be using their own. And in the software, you have the ability to upcharge. If they're using your account number, hey, you worked hard to get your discounts. It's much better than theirs, and maybe there's an in between that you use for your clients that they get a discount and you get an upside of that as well for what you've negotiated. Cartonization is a big one when I'm packing, either when I'm doing pallets or I'm doing orders, eaches to a carton. I need to optimize the shipping container. Like I said, and the shipping container could be a pallet or it could be in a box. Or multiple boxes. How do I do that? How do I do rate shopping against it? How do I get the best cost against it? And also what we're seeing, and we developed an app recently, and anyone can log into the app. One of the gaps we saw, we call it Boximizer. So it's boximizer.com. And you can log in for free. And one of the things we've seen is box sizes are wrong. Okay, you may have standard box sizes, but it's not optimal for the products you're shipping. So in Boximizer, you can go in, upload your products, their sizes, their weight. You can upload your carton sizes. You can upload your orders, and AI will analyze your orders and tell you what your fill rates would be. And you can pick your fill rate goal of what you want in a carton or a pallet even. And then it'll come back and tell you if your carton sizes are correct. We've been seeing, basically as products change, companies don't understand that the box sizes may not be optimal for the products they're shipping, and they need to update them. So that's what that product will do for you. Please feel free to go to it and check it out. Retail compliance and chargeback prevention. This is big for B2B. And we see it across customers and 3PLs. They need access to a large library of compliance labels and how to handle the compliance. And it may be compliance at the carton level. It may be at the pallet level. It may be both. And you really have to do this correctly. Otherwise, you get these chargebacks. And chargebacks are expensive. They're not cheap. And if you don't follow it, as you know, your customers get upset. They pass the charges off to you. You don't want them either. So we built a whole retail compliance system, with all the compliance labels that you can have in here, advanced ship notices, bill of ladings, all those different types of things to enable the B2B side. This is one of the things we're known for, but we have a workflow builder, and it's called Smart Task. It's the first microservices workflow platform in the industry, and for that matter, across all software companies, because we got the patent for it. So it's a drag and drop workflow builder, and our version 2.0 is coming out soon, where we AI enabled the workflow builder. So essentially now customers can easily build out workflows, whether for receiving, put away, picking, replenishment, all how you want the process to work. You can build out the workflow in the AI, and it makes it so much easier. Rather than dragging and dropping and figuring out the whole workflow works, it automatically sequences the transaction for you. And so you can't make a mistake. The AI walks you through building out your own transactions, and there's no reason to compile or do anything like that. As you build out a mobile transaction for someone to follow, it just follows it immediately. As you enable that, so you can design one, you can test it with a single person, or you can roll it out to the whole group. And it's on our website. You can check that out. But having a workflow builder is key, because you may need to optimize process based on changes in the market, maybe new customers you have, and maybe one customer needs to work differently than someone else. Maybe you're doing hard goods and then you get a food customer, and now you need to handle expiration dates, you need to handle lot management, date coding. You need to have maybe a different how you allocate goods. So allocation, when you're dealing with food, you want to allocate first to expire, maybe in an expiration window, maybe Walmart versus Costco versus Kroger's. They all have different expiration windows of the product that you're allowed to pick, that basically meets that standard. So this is a big piece here for us. It makes us very unique in that you can have multiple picking workflows based on the type of product you're working on, or we call it the work type. So if a work type comes down for food, we know how we're going to do it. If it's a hard good, we know how we do it. If it's cereal based, we know how to do that. If it's lot controlled. So that's really unique to our platform, and we have that working for years. So how does it all work together? And that's one of the key. The key is, if you have separate platforms all over the place, as you know, there's always these workarounds. The integrations are tough, and you really get there for the benefit. So I would say, if you can stay with a single platform, that's best. If you can't, hey, understand, you got to integrate different systems to run the business. But if you can keep it in a single platform, your life can become easier. You can get more success across the projects that you want to do, and get to a point where it works all together very easily. So, as you're evaluating platforms, certainly include us. If you want to talk with me as well about challenges you're having, or get thoughts on things you're thinking about, I certainly can make myself available. But as we went through the slides, you can see, like, how do I onboard better? How do I generate better invoices, 3PL billing, robotics, automation, workflow? How do I test out workflow? How do I handle post-go live changes? These are just examples that everyone is dealing with and needs to deal with, to become better. That's all I have for today. Thank you for joining. And if you want to talk, James can help you out. You can email James, and he can set up meetings, and would love to talk to you.
Definitely. Well, thanks for everyone's time. I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but if you do, like Craig said, follow up with us at a later date.